Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first segment of our four-step process on overcoming inbox overwhelm. This is the Get Clean segment. So before we get started, I want to make sure that you do a couple of the things that are necessary for you to be successful as we go through this piece. My first suggestion is that you watch the OIO 2020 teaser video that you would find in this same YouTube channel. I know it's 13 minutes long, but what it does is it not only gives you a context for the whole process, but there is pre-work for this lesson. So it would be really helpful if you take the time to do that. You'll get the most out of this session as quick as possible if you do that pre-work. And it gives you a couple quick tips that I have heard, I've gotten really good feedback on, and I think will be helpful for you. So the main pre-work is that you have a clear visual indicator of your to-do items in your inbox. So again, you can go forward and watch this whole video without having that done, but if you actually want to do the work as we're going, and by the time that we're done with this segment, actually have this step completed, that is the first thing that you need to do. Again, a clear visual indicator of your to-do items in your inbox. Just a quick reminder about who I am. My name is Jennifer. You will see me live on Thursday when we're doing our Q&A session. I did give a little bit more of my history in the teaser video, so I don't need to get into that right now. But we have a few weeks together of getting our stuff done, and I just wanted to make sure that you knew who I am and that I'm credentialed and ready to help you be successful. So let's keep going. So as I covered in the teaser video, and just to remind everyone, there's basically 4 steps that I cover in this process. Get clean, get organized, get streamlined, and get started. We give a brief overview of each one of those in the teaser. Again, if you haven't watched it yet, go back and start there. Our section for today is focusing on getting clean, and that is the inbox zero approach. Now, take a look at the screen. I know there's a lot of visuals going on, all our fun memes. I think that there's something to be said about every one of you being able to relate to at least one of these items on screen. So this is your time for a quick reality check. I want you to take a moment, pause the video, and go look at your Outlook. I want you to make note. What's your number? So there's a few different pieces that I look for when I'm evaluating someone's inbox and possibly how overwhelmed they might be. I look at the total number of messages in their inbox, how many unread messages they have, if there's unread messages floating in other folders, how many items are in their sent items folder, and how many are in deleted. You'll hear throughout our process why I look at each one of those, but I'd like to at least have you take a moment and become aware of where you are with each of these. There's no right or wrong, it's just an awareness. In fact, there's been some studies done recently about the right or wrong about how we manage our email. What you're going to find is the people on the left are what we call filers, and the people on the right are what we call pilers. Interestingly, according to the McKinsey Global Institute, professionals are spending 28% of their time on email. Probably the other parts is just in meetings, but that's a different conversation. Now, there's tools that are built into some of our email inboxes that can help us filter through some unimportant messages. In fact, we'll spend some time going forward talking about the specific tool called Focused Inbox, because that type of tool allows us to spend 13% less time reading unimportant emails, and you're the one who indicates whether they're important or not. But let's talk about the real reason that some people are pilers and some people are filers. The goal is that if you need to retrieve a message, if you need to find something for reference or to do, that you know where it is. And the filers are typically putting that stuff in folders. And the pilers are typically keeping it all in their inbox. And then there's some people who do a hybrid of both approaches. So if you are that filer who has folder, subfolder, subfolder folder, sub-subfolder folder, and more, there's nothing wrong with that approach if it's actually working for you. So if you're properly cleaning out your inbox regularly and you're putting stuff where it belongs because you've created a very robust folder system, if it's working for you, keep doing it. Actually, I want to make sure that that's clear throughout our whole process. If what you're doing is working for you, keep doing it. You can keep modifying bits and pieces of what I teach while maintaining your current process. What's important is that if what you're doing isn't working, if that's making you lose track of tasks, if it's making you feel overwhelmed, if it's making you scroll because you're not sure where to start, then that's part of what's not working, and those are some things that we need to change. So just as an overview then, right now, the question becomes, can you find it? Research has shown that there is no difference between our pilers and our filers in terms of findability. Actually, it's been fun to teach this class in person because we often hear from people of like, oh, I'm a filer, but my wife or husband is a piler, and it's just so annoying to me to see that 13,000 number up in that upper right-hand corner where it doesn't bother them at all. So the thing to keep in mind is what's working for you and can you find the messages when you need them. The risk that we take by being an over filer is that in Outlook, typically one message goes to one folder, and misfiling it can wreak havoc on your system. Search has gotten so much better in this tool that it really doesn't matter whether you're a filer or you're a piler, as long as you use search in an effective manner, and that will cover more in the future. So again, neither one of these are right or wrong. It's only if it's not working for you that you need to make a change. As we move forward in our process then of getting clean, we're going to be focusing on the concept of inbox zero. Inbox zero is not about the number of messages in your inbox. It's about the amount of time that your brain is in your inbox. And my goal is that by the time that we're completed with this process, you will have a clear, almost autopilot, standardized procedure where you're automatically putting things where they belong so you can either store or process them accordingly. What this means to me is no more scrolling through to figure out what messages are you having to review, what messages are just for storage. It's super easy and again, more like being on autopilot. Now, in general, in email, there's 5 different things going on. Email, you're looking at your inflow of email. Once you've gotten the flow in, you have to triage those messages and figure out, how are we processing them? You're looking at tasks, then you have to figure out where to store them or archive them, and at some point there may be a retrieval necessary. So as we're going through our entire system, these are the pieces that we're covering in that process. Now, as we get started on getting clean, I'm giving you a sample of an inbox that has about 16,000 messages hanging out in it. That's a lot. Not the most I've ever seen, but a lot. And so at this point, it's hard to know from looking at this where to start. And this is the problem that we're really trying to solve, is that it's immediately clear where to start. In order for this to work, I need to share with you some of my premises or rules about the different components of our email. So you don't have to necessarily agree with these rules right now, but I want you to understand that these are the basis for what we're working on. The first thing is your inbox should not be your to-do list. We'll talk more about this in our processing stages, where we're getting organized and we're doing our getting started parts. But when your inbox is your to-do list, oftentimes things, again, you get into that scroll of looking for the messages. You also may be in a situation where you start processing the last in, first out. And I want everybody to be more strategic and intentional about what they're working on and that they've set their priorities of urgency and importance. So if that's happening in your inbox, sometimes it's difficult to know where to start. So my first rule is your inbox should not be your to-do list. My second rule is that your inbox should not be storage. For anybody who's operating on mobile devices, you know that you're trying to scroll through all those different messages. It slows down, it's slow to load. It's just not the most convenient way. So if you're done with something, we want it to be stored. I'm not going to suggest that you delete it, but I am going to say that it needs to be stored in a safe place, and that should not be your inbox. It gets confused with, especially if your to-dos are in there as well. Your deleted should not be storage. This is a habit that I've seen in people who maybe had old company rules that they came from where there was a limited amount of storage available in their email. So they would store stuff in their deleted items, and that is not an effective tool. So I don't know that that's such a habit anymore, but just understand that if it's in your deleted, you should be willing to let that go away and maybe delete your deleted items regularly. Empty that trash. Finally, your sent items shouldn't equal storage, and I'll explain more about that as we go along. Our focus right now is our inbox, but storing things in sent items also can be a little bit ineffective because you may lose track of things there. So that said, along with getting our inbox clean, we also need to think about what are some of our habits around email. This is actually going to be an interesting conversation if you come on to our live Q&A webinar to talk through what really makes sense in your business and in your organization. Here's the premise. If we're always looking for new stuff to do, we may not be getting done the stuff that we've said is urgent and important for us to get done. So if we change our habit of how frequently we're checking our email, and we can use some automated tools like rules and things like that to help us sort through our inbox more quickly, and then rather than searching for the stuff to do, it's organized in a nice manner. That helps reduce the flow of messages into the inbox. While experts would say from a productivity standpoint, we should only be checking for new messages 2 to 3 times a day. I recognize in your industry that that is pretty laughable. I feel like there should be a laugh track going behind that concept. Instead, do think about what is a reasonable amount of time for you to not check for new messages, to give yourself the space to work on the things that are urgent and important for you to be working on. Perhaps if you were sitting in a meeting for an hour, you might not be checking email during that whole hour. You'd check it before you get into the meeting and after you leave the meeting. If you could consider making it an hourly check-in on email, that's probably less frequent than what your habit is to do right now. Again, just something to think about of what's reasonable for you. Our goal is to not always constantly be taking in the new stuff and give ourselves time and space to be working on our existing priorities. Additionally, we encourage you to turn off notifications. So you might get a little banner in your bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You might get a noise. You might get other types of pop-ups saying you have mail. Whatever those are, turning off your notifications will help you, again, stay more focused and not worry about the squirrel of what's the new thing that just came in, and instead stay focused on what you're working on. Now, you guys are also working under some tight deadlines for things. So it may make sense that we give some other visual indicators of things that are urgent without turning notifications on for every message. Those are some things we'll cover under the Get Streamlined topic. The last habit is to process to zero every time you check email, meaning your inbox gets swept and cleaned, And then you might not get it all done right away, but your inbox is cleaned out, and then you can go set your priorities about what you're going to do next. So again, with any new process, there has to be some new habits that you're implementing. And this is only going to be as successful as you choose for it to be, taking it one step at a time. But this is kind of the underlying concepts behind this whole process. So now it's time to get to how do we do it? We actually can get you through the Inbox Zero process right now. What we're going to do is we're going to describe the steps. Then I'm going to do a video to show the steps in Outlook. I'll have posted that video separately in the YouTube channel as well for you to review if you just want to go back and see that visual rather than watch this whole thing. And this is the steps that we want you to complete or come to our webinar on Thursday with any questions that you have about. So here we go. The first step, again, is that pre-work. It's making sure that you have a visual way that you're tracking your to-do or follow-up items. Now, here we go. We're going to clean out your inbox in 4 easy steps without hitting delete. That's actually one of the biggest responses I get when I offer this training, which is anybody can clean out their inbox. They just have to select all and hit delete. And they cringe a little and realize that that's not really an effective way to keep getting our work done. So please know, don't worry, I'm not asking you to hit delete. In fact, if you are ever on the cusp of determining, should I keep it or should I delete it? Because you're all using Office 365 now, you guys each have like a terabyte of storage between your OneDrive and your Outlook and those kinds of things. You are not going to run out of space. I strongly believe you are not going to run out of space. So if the debate is keep or delete and you're on the fence, it's not a clear delete answer, keep it. But let's put it in the right place. Here we go. Cleaning out your inbox in 4 easy steps, no deleting required. The first step is to make a new folder. Now, in the case of my demonstration, we're calling that folder the Respond folder. You can either make it right under your inbox or in your email account where you want it. I will show both in the video. If you would rather call it To Do than Respond, that's up to you. Whatever is going to call your attention to it. What's happening in this folder is this is the folder where you get all your to-do items and you move them from your inbox. In the video, I give you a couple quick ways that you can do a sweep and get all of your to-do items moved in there in like just 2 clicks. So watch the video for that. The next step is that you make a new folder. Now, I just call that folder Keep. Some people, from a records retention standpoint, prefer to organize it by year, so you might want to call it 2020. The idea here is that all of your stuff that you want to keep lands in this new folder, and that you don't have to go through this process of subfolder of subfolder of subfolder any longer. If you have a subfolder structure that is working for you that you are regularly using, go ahead and keep using that. But if you're only using that for some things and the rest of the stuff that you're storing has piled up in your inbox, put the rest of it in this Keep folder. Now, if instead you swear someday you're going to sort those messages, my goal by the time that you're done with this is you have 0 sitting in your inbox. So those of you who swear you're going to sort through stuff and get it organized and don't want to just use Keep or 2020, go ahead and make yourself a folder called To Sort. But if you haven't sorted through that within the next 3 months, you're probably never going to get to it, and just rename that Keep or 2020. Just let it go. Because from a searchability standpoint, it just doesn't matter if you've organized things in all those beautiful little subfolders or if you have them all jumbled together. My goal is they're just not living in your inbox. They need to be somewhere else. We've separated our to-do items from our keep items or storage. Okay, so the last step, Step number 4, move everything else from your inbox there. And in that case, it's going to be a Control A to select all and a drag and drop to put it in. Again, the video that you're going to see next will take you through all of these steps, and then we'll come back and dig into wrapping this part up. This is step 1. So here's the next video. The first step in this process that I hope you've already completed is that you have a clear visual way of indicating your to-do items. Now, I have a bunch of junk stuff in my inbox for the sake of this demonstration, but just in case you haven't done that part yet, a couple different ways that you can have a clear visual of items that you need to do are that you could right-click on the message and mark it as unread. Now, in some cases, that does mean that new stuff coming in can also get blended with your to-do items. But as long as you know what the difference is between a to-do item and something new that's come in, that's not going to be a problem with this process. That is one way to do that. Another way to have a clear visual is that you use a flag. So the flags can then be sorted or filtered, so you can arrange the message by your flag dates. And that is another way that you can clearly show what you need to do. So for the sake of our demonstration, I'm going to flag a couple of messages just so that we can show what these next steps look like. So as I've described, there's just 4 steps to cleaning out your inbox. The first one is that you make a new folder called Respond. This is where all of your to-do items are going to go. Now, where you want that Respond folder to land is going to be up to you, and I'll show you some tricks later for where that could possibly land to make it easier for you to find stuff. For right now, I'm going to just right-click on my inbox, go to New Folder, and label it Respond. Hit Enter, and the next step is to take all of my to-do items from my inbox and move them there. Now, you could take that on a one-at-a-time drag and drop method. But for those of you who have more items to do, you may want to arrange by your flag status, and that floats all of your flagged items to the top. If you did it by the unread, you can also filter and show only your unread messages, and then that's all that's going to land in that area. Then you can select those items. So my fastest way, I only have a couple up here, but my fastest way to select multiple items is to click on that top one, hold my Shift key down, and then click down to the last one in that series. The Shift is grabbing everything from that first click, everything in between, down to that last click. So if you had to scroll for a little while, that might be one way to accomplish that, or just move small groups at a time. Then left click and drag those items over to your Respond folder. So what we've done at this point is we've now isolated our to-do items. They're clearly in a particular place. The next folder that you're going to create, as we mentioned in the earlier section, is called Keep or Keep or 2020 or To Sort. Now, keep in mind that these automatically get put in alphabetical order. But if you want Keep to land underneath Respond, you can go to Respond and click Move Up, or you can move them in whatever order you want by right-clicking and then moving them in a certain order there. In the past, we only had the ability for them to land in alphabetical order, so some people would actually put certain indicators in the front of them, like an asterisk, or like a dash, or maybe they'd number them or whatever. Those weren't bad options, and you certainly could still do that if that's helpful for you, but it's not necessary because we can right-click on those folders and then move them up and down into the order that we want. So now back to my inbox. So again, at this point, there is nothing in my inbox that I need to do. Everything else is just stuff that needs to be stored. So I would Control A to select all from in here, left click, drag it over to Keep, and we now have achieved inbox 0. Now this is just the first step in a multiple step process, but the goal here was to have a very clear place where our to-do items are and a very clear place where things are stored. Again, if you have any questions on this part, please watch the video again. If you don't want these folders landing under your inbox, if you'd rather have them be an independent folder, rather than right-clicking on your inbox and making a new folder, your other option is to scroll up to your email address, right-click on that, and then do a new folder from here. Again, I'll name that Retain, and I would name one Keep. And you can float them wherever you want by right-clicking and rearranging them by moving up and moving down. So now that you've seen those steps I'll put into action, again, you have a clear place where you can go and do your work, which we've named the Respond folder. And you have a separate place where you're storing your stuff, which in that example we named the Keep folder. And in theory, you have an empty inbox. So let's get ready for the next steps. In order for you to really get the full benefit of the whole program, it's time to complete this first step of getting clean. Again, that's getting your inbox to inbox 0. The main thing to be aware of at that point is that all of your to-do items are landing in the Respond folder. So you want to start working out of the Respond folder. Now, we have more steps coming, and this is a month-long series, so you'll be learning more about how do we sort and process, but the first step is getting clean. For any questions that you have, one option you have is to attend our live Q&A webinar this Thursday at 1. The email that we sent out has the link for it. Also, it would be great if you have any questions, submit them in advance using this link, the bit.ly OIO Leader 1 questions. And that way, if you're not able to attend, we are recording that webinar and you're able to get your questions submitted and we'll answer them online, or I can get back to you. Next week, we start on the Get Organized process, where the video will be sent out on Monday and the live Q&A webinar will be Thursday, March 10th at 9 a.m. Thank you so much. I hope you've gotten a lot out of the Get Clean part of overcoming inbox overwhelm, and I hope to see you soon.